Hello, everyone. So, as a follow on, really, from what Bex wrote last week in the newsletter about tiredness, some of the things that I've been noticing within myself and also in work and just general um, pricklings on my etheric ears are some of the reasons for that tiredness and the way that it's manifesting in our lives. Now, I know myself that when we reach the bottom of the barrel, with regards to our own thinking and the way that we're engaging with life, one of the destabilizing points that can come up is that you just feel as if there's no point whatsoever. And it can be quite alarming when we sense and become aware of our lack or absence of presence in many different areas of our life, from our finances, the bills that we're paying, the things that we're agreeing to our relationships, even to the way that we brush our teeth or drive to work, the way in which we're assuming that we know what that experience is going to be like and just going on to autopilot. Some of the sadness that people have been feeling generally around this is that they're sort of startlingly aware of how they could be more. Now, it would feel as if a lot of the masks that we've all been wearing for a very long time to rush through life, to have the energy and the momentum to do the array of complex tasks that we do, to feel as if we've got to push against time, we've developed masks. We've developed ways of being able to twist and turn our bodies through that pressure and that energy. But these times are super important as the world is shifting to basically a value set of the real. So the way I see it, it's kind of splitting in two ways. There are parts of us, and there are also people that are going headlong into a sense of rightness and justification and getting on with their lives and being in the material plane and trying to be successful or trying to be worried or trying to be proactive or whatever it might take. It seems to be held in this very material sense and interpretation of reality and how we live. On the other hand, there's parts of us and there's people that seem to be dedicating themselves in different ways to becoming more real, to becoming more responsible, to becoming more connected. Now, as we see that split in the world, in how some things feel really great and some things feel really awful and kind of prescribed, and things kind of don't make sense at all, culture seems to be moving further and further away from sort of organic rules and organic law, and this is all very confusing to the part of us that is kind of still a child and remembers the wonder that it is to be alive. And we find ourselves fluctuating between these two states sometimes of feeling alive, feeling present, and then feeling quite alone, feeling quite burdened and overwhelmed by the pressure of just how things feel so out of key. Now, one of the things I heard today in a session that I gave somebody is that they were really sort of shocked by their lack of presence in their life, in different aspects of their relationships and different aspects of their work. They were just shocked. And they'd realized, I guess, that they'd been pushing through life, and that had manifested in different ways, perhaps in different habits and patterns that they were picking up that they actually felt were habits and patterns and crutches of old. And they were shocked to see them re-emerge and re-enter their life almost like a weary soldier. If there's something in your life that you kind of felt that you dealt with or conquered, then when it returns, it can feel quite alarming because it's like, oh my God, not this shit again. And the mind gets really confused and it starts to get hyper alert and it starts to get really on the lookout for any signs of things getting worse. And then, of course, inevitably it does. And even if it doesn't in our external life, in our external reality, all of that bias and perception and evidence that we are making about the situation or making about the information that we're receiving from our bodies or our environment, we're kind of really, really closed off. And we're also super, super tired in that as well, because as that mask starts to fall, as the character that we were assuming that we were playing starts to become old and tired, and we really feel that in our bodies through that exhaustion, that lack of excitement, that lack of juiciness to life. As that starts to shift, somehow we convince ourselves that there's something wrong with us. We convince ourselves that everything might go to pot, or we convince ourselves that there just is nothing that can be done. We've got to grim and bear it. We've got to like man up. We've got to push through. And of course, if you're anything like me and any other people that I've spoken to recently, you've been trying that maybe for a couple of months, and now is the point where it just feels very thin. And the danger that that creates in our mind is feeling like things could snap, that it could all just go wah, and we might get found out as like, you know, this charlatan or this pretender in life as a character, and that somehow we're going to be ousted or outed as this bad or damaged person. Now, none of that is happening. It's all happening within your own mind, but it's really tricky to navigate. When your body doesn't feel safe, because how can the body rest? How can the mind relax? How can you let go of whatever is troubling you if the only way that you've been able to deal with that previously is just by running that scenario over and over and over again, almost like a simulation, looking for worst case possible scenarios. Obviously, if you're thinking like that, it's not really going to cultivate much presence, is it? And it's not actually going to allow you to access the reality of a situation and the reality of your feeling. So this process also goes on for the way that we relate to our own feeling. We're taking a sensation within our body and we're labeling it anxiety, or we're associating it with a particular habit stream that we're aware of, or we are perhaps not very compassionate or allow much space or a safe container for ourselves to feel that in amongst all the busyness of our day-to-day lives. Now, my reply when this individual was sort of concerned about their lack of presence was this really random analogy of, if you go skateboarding and you fall over, it's going to hurt. If you do it the next day, it's going to hurt perhaps even more. The third day, it's going to hurt even more. But by the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh days, your body's going to kind of acclimate to that experience, and your spectrum of input in terms of what you're sensorily exposed to is kind of increasing. So therefore, you get used to an expanded awareness within that activity or within that skill set. In this case is skateboarding. When it comes to presence and the desire for joy and happiness and purpose and all that yummy stuff that we kind of know, well, we all know what that feels like for us. It's hard to articulate from yourself or myself what that would feel like for you. But when it comes to that, when we find ourselves not very present, or we become aware of ourselves not being very present, we kind of get lost in the feelings of not being very present. And we take that information and those thoughts as us. But of course, in order to be aware of that, we have to be actually viewing it and assessing it from a removed situation, which of course you are. So this is what they'd call the soul part of yourself, or the part of you that listens to your thoughts. It's because you have your thoughts, don't you? But of course, someone is listening. So if you say hippopotamus to yourself in your head, you heard yourself say hippopotamus. So there's like two parts there. So when we're aware of a lack of presence, it's not actually indicative or showing us that we aren't present, that we are somehow absent. It is in that very awareness that our presence to ourselves can be demonstrated and proven to ourselves. Now, what we do with that, we're not very well taught how to react, because we just spin out and we think, oh my God, what have I got to do? I've got to like start exercising and like get all these things in my life together that I know I should be doing, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of overwhelm and we take ourselves out of the presence, out of the feeling, projecting into the future, essentially posing the question to ourselves, how do I find that person? What do I need outside of me to find the energy to do all these things and put all these things in place so I can become more present? Now, your awareness and increasing awareness of things in your life that you aren't present with is actually really indicative of the fact that your presence and your awareness is increasing. So, a great analogy that was given to me, if you take the middle of this candle, for example, as the things that you know, so like different experiences, different ideas about the world, different feelings of safety and stability in relationships. If you take this area of what you know, you could say that this area is what you're aware of that you don't know. So, what do I mean by that? You're not going to go out in a sailboat in the middle of a stormy ocean until you've reached a level of competency. So before you start that skill, you can assess that you're pretty incompetent, and you wouldn't think to do that. And then when you start that skill with that excitement, when you start a new endeavor, you have all of these ideas and you learn a few things, and then all of a sudden, all of that area of your awareness opens up, and it's like, oh my God, there's loads of stuff to learn, or there's loads of stuff I don't know. So as this circle increases, as it builds, as you become aware of what you do know, obviously the outside edge expands as well. So you become aware of more things that you don't know. And why I'm telling you this is because the awareness that you're struggling in different parts of your life, whether it be not having presence or finding it hard to have the compassion that you need, or find the forgiveness for someone or something that you so desperately desire. What we do when we know what we know, and then we're aware of what we don't, we start to like think about what we need to find, who we need to be okay with that and to expand. But it's a trick of the mind, and it's a very gentle one, and it's one that can tire us out. And as I say, I'm asking you basically to invite yourself to let go of a whole heap of heaviness, because you haven't really been educated or taught to trust your inner knowing in a way that you can actually ask the question and become the knowing. What can I have? How can I be to be okay in that situation? The difference between having and finding is that finding is a bit more in the future. You're projecting your body and your awareness again out of the moment to try and find something to fill the hole or the dissatisfaction or the feeling of dis-ease that you're feeling in that moment. But having is like taking that lack of presence and coming up to this point here that you're actually viewing your life from. Now, it seems really trippy, and believe me, it is. And things are only going to get trippier and trippier, because you're being returned through every irritation, through every perceived oppression of your energy, through every aspect of your being that would blame your condition and your circumstances on something outside of yourself. You're being asked to reclaim, repurpose, and make all of these things whole. There is actually no need to have such a crazy cycle of up and down in your life. And there is actually no requirement to struggle to find joy. Living in this duality of pain and punishment, and then joy and reward, is one of the fundamental things that are used to control you, and is also one of the fundamental things that can be your greatest opportunity to self-liberation. Because as you start to realize that you are the composer, that you write this song that you live, and that you don't have to perform anybody else's, It's like you're reclaiming everything back. And quite a lot of the tiredness and exhaustion that people have been finding is because their inner gearbox of how they shift gears, shift pace, meet people, meet places, dream and action is being dismantled on a very deep and fundamental subconscious level. And as it's being reassembled, you're having to learn to drive your vehicle in a different way. So some of that exhaustion is just about learning new habits, but ultimately they're going to feel more natural because there's less lenses of justification and explanation and just bullshit talking in your own head about having an impulse and acting upon it, or wanting to know something and then just knowing that you can know it and looking the other way, and then as if by magic the thing, the stimulus, the catalyst comes into your reality to help you realize that, like, oh yeah, I can have that experience of myself. There's a lot of bitterness and a lot of tenderness in a lot of people at the moment. The idea of war, financial scarcity is on the tip of everybody's tongue. And if it's not in your reality directly, then obviously you're spending time around people who are carrying that heavy energy of lack, of fear, of feeling as if they are somehow restricted or limited. It really is this process of coming back up to the bird's eye view, connecting with that soul element of your being that allows you to expand your awareness and your identification larger than just your physical body. If you think you are just this body and bones, of course you're going to feel vulnerable. And of course, the mind is going to be scared about letting go, is going to be scared of intimacy and vulnerability, is going to be scared to sing and play, because it thinks that everything is going to fall around it. So if you're feeling this really heavy energy of like, what the fuck, like, you know, things are about to go really wobbly for me, I would just ask yourself to become curious about why your mind is thinking like that, and how and why your mind might be trying to keep you safe in that. Because if you're having a re-emergence of very old patterns and thought beliefs that like are almost kind of like quite scary and distasteful to you, then just chill. Take my lead and trust me on this, and just chill. And become curious, because the very base elements of where those opinions, thoughts, and biases about yourself and how this world works, where they originate from, you're getting to the depths of them in a sense. And it's about sort of offering those parts of you ideas, evidence, reassurances that actually you can do something else for yourself. So when it comes to changing habits or changing behaviors, the habits and behaviors that you struggle with, that you don't like, that you don't enjoy, but you find yourself on autopilot just doing anyway, becoming curious about what profit they gave you, how they served you in the past. So, you know, having a closed heart, maybe that was something that you needed to do because you just had too much on and you couldn't engage that part of yourself. But if you're having that experience of feeling quite closed off, quite lonely, and you're actually wanting to connect but finding it difficult, becoming curious about why perhaps you find yourself closed off is a great place to start. Because you can sort of sympathize very easily with yourself when you understand that you're just trying to get by. And it's really that getting by energy that is being asked to fade out. So, speaking to those of you who are perhaps a bit more aware or connected or interested with that sort of collective consciousness upshift and evolution, everywhere within you is being supported and rallied and championed to take full radical responsibility of your life, your vibration, everything. Everything. Because if you're a person in one way or another who is seeking self-liberation or sovereignty and actually cares about the future of freedom and the future of freedom of expression, and also all of that within the knowing that if you boil it down, like you're all right, you're made of love, there's no actually You're not a threat. There's no dangerous stuff within you. It's just that when we believe that, that's when we become a threat. When we believe that we're dangerous, when we believe that we're damaged, when we believe that we're vulnerable, then that's what we experience. So if you care about all of that, you're really being asked to be a bit bolder and a bit bigger and keep identifying with something that's a lot larger than you. Now, that's really difficult when the walls of the reality or matrix kind of butt up against you, when you feel like, oh my God, like, where are all the real people? I'm just kind of here today to let you know that that is all indeed coming. And this lull that perhaps if you're listening to this that you feel, where you had loads of motivation maybe a couple of months ago and now you feel quite dry and tired, don't worry about it, because not all that glitters is gold. So when it comes to comparing yourself to others, or you have an idea of your success, or you have an idea of where you think you should be, you're playing a much larger game here that isn't confined to simply material success, or success even in its definition within a lifetime. Because you're here at a very, very special moment in humanity. And I know that if you're listening to this and you've got this far, then you care deeply about life, and you care deeply about love, and you care deeply about the legacy of those things. So just remember, there's those who appear really loud at the moment in all avenues of life and media that are saying life is a certain way. And if you're feeling that pressure within, questioning how life works, how you work, what is the very nature of all of this anyway, then as you map that, as you start to understand that for you, nothing's going to stop you. And you're going to connect with all the individuals everywhere that are doing the same for them. And not just for them, as I say, but for life itself here and freedom itself here on earth. It couldn't be a more pivotal time. Nothing is decided, no fate has been cemented. Every decision, every action, every choice is changing the course of history of your life and the lives of future generations. The thing is that isn't supposed to be a pressure. So you don't have to have loads of information or consider yourself super educated or equipped or resourced to do anything. You just need to embrace action. And by that, I mean just doing something that serves you, doing something that feels good, doing something that relieves that monkey on your back a little bit. And when it comes to safety, it's worth appreciating that you're dealing with a very primal and infantile part of your psychology and physiology. So it's all very well to think really logically about your life path or what you might need to do to affect change in your life, your family's life, or your community's life. But we all reach a point somewhere where we just need to be held, where we just need some sort of rest or comfort or reassurance, just as a child would. So don't try and jump the gun in that if you can. See and ask yourself and be curious about that small child part of you. What's it crying out for right now? What does it need? And if you need time alone, don't ever feel guilty about that. And if you even need time alone from the people that you love the most dearly, and then you feel better when you have time alone, don't worry about that and don't put that to them or even you, but just enjoy that reset, expand, and then return. It really is your vibration here that's the most important thing. And the most loving thing that you can do for yourself is to take care of that, because that is your true point of power. You can't be imitated then. You're completely original. You're flowing with the energy of love and you're in that creation. And you'll work it out, because you have done before, right? And I'll speak more to that point of power next time I make a video like this. Lots of love to you all, and there's a few recommendations below that I'm sure will offer you some ease. Take care.